Hey guys, it's Shaman.
Jennifer.
Jen. I don't know why we're together today, but anyway, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about how couples avoid conflict in relationships and how that can impact your relationship as a whole. I'm going to do kind of a whole series on the idea of conflicts that couples come into, mainly avoiding conflict in relationships.
Right. And these are kind of driven by things you tend to
notice.
See in like day-to-day sessions, right? Like this is, I gotta take my glasses off, sorry. In like your day, now I can't read anything, but but you notice these kind of things. These are driven by like your lived experience as a therapist here at Harper Therapy. These are the kind of things I see all the time dealing with couples.
Yeah, exactly.
So
like this time I kind of wanted to talk about what it looked like and go over basic, and next time I was thinking I kind of wanted to give you more specific tools.
Sure.
So today's just kind of more of like an overview. So a theme that I see is usually that couples will come in and they will be talking about, well, we really don't have any conflict.
Right.
But we're not connecting.
Right.
And so my next question I usually ask is like, are you talking about what's going wrong?
Right.
And the answer is usually no. So couples are usually avoiding the conflict.
Right. So it's just easier not to talk about it, pretend like there's no elephant in the room.
Yeah, exactly. And there's two reasons why this can happen. It could be because the person has a history of maybe being in a relationship where they weren't being heard, or they felt like conflict wasn't being resolved, or it could have to do with their foobs, their family of origin.
Right, which is a term we use a lot around here, foobs.
Yeah, where maybe in their family feelings weren't validated or understood, so now they're going into this relationship and they're like, I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm also feeling really upset and like not connected and very agitated.
All right. Well, does it cause I think obviously it probably causes a lot of tension.
Yes. Yeah, it causes a lot of tension. So there's two themes I usually see. So there's the one where they avoid and then the tension just builds. Okay. So this can look like a perfect example is the wife will come in and say, my husband never does the dishes.
Right.
So her cycle is notice the dishes, avoid that feeling, avoid, push it down. And then what happens is eventually she explodes.
Right.
Which in effect her husband now feels confused.
Right.
Angry. Attacked.
Right.
Even I've heard set up to fail.
Right.
Because they didn't know it was.
Yeah, I can't win no matter what.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't even know it was an issue. So what happens is either the person kind of shuts down or maybe they yell back, which just reinforces this, well, I knew I couldn't bring up conflict and I knew this was an issue.
Right. And that's kind of like Terry Real uses that as the more. Like,
yes.
That's the trigger that just keeps creating the cycle, right?
Yes. And the other one is more like kind of what I was saying before. If there was tension in the relationship before, let's say they've tried talking about topics and they just realize like, oh, we're not getting anywhere here. So they just start avoiding it. They start having the narrative like, oh, we can't talk about negative things.
Right. So they just become like what, two ships sailing in the night?
Pretty much. Where it's just like tension is occurring, no one's talking about it, and kind of those underlying core beliefs start to get stronger. So it may be like they don't care about my feelings, or they always think I'm doing something wrong, or we're now not like, and that leads to like lack of connection. If you're not talking, you're also probably not connecting in the bedroom.
Right. Those are both symptoms of the same problem. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what else does it impact?
So it impacts also trust. If a person isn't telling them something like about like that upsets them, or maybe they're avoiding telling them things because they think it's going to make them upset. So once the person finds out, they're like, you haven't been telling me about this, trust could be impacted. Impacts, like I was saying, intimacy, because a lot of times when we stop talking about like conflicts, the tension builds up to where we're now also not talking about positive things or having positive time together. Right. So now intimacy and sex is down.
Right. And the whole cycle's broken.
And as an individual, it can impact someone's self-worth because they might start to feel like they're a bad person.
Right.
Or it can also just impact the mood in general. Both people are probably in a bad mood because they're not connecting with their partner. Right. They're not having sex. Right. And they're just in a tense environment.
Right. And avoiding it's doing nothing.
Yes.
Right. So how do you fix it?
So first step I would say is recognize it's destructive. A lot of couples don't know that avoiding conflict is actually destructive to the relationship. People think like we're not talking about what's going wrong and we're not arguing, so that's okay.
Yeah, it's far from okay.
So taking that recognition that it's better to express when you're upset versus holding it in, because kind of like I was saying before, you're eventually going to explode.
Right. It's going to come out one way or another, most likely sideways.
Yes, exactly. Next, get insight into why you're possibly avoiding. So is this your family of origin stuff where you're like, oh, my dad always invalidated my emotions, or like I was yelled at for having emotions?
Right.
Or is it because of past relationships where this happened? Or is it because you've noticed a cycle in your relationship?
Right.
Kind of gaining that insight into like, why are we doing this will help you guys have a starting point.
Right, help you develop a strategy on what we can do to maybe kind of correct that.
Yeah, and it can open a dialogue of like, this is why this might be happening.
Right, which if you have that dialogue, that might actually bring you a little closer.
Yes, which goes to my next point is open communication about the cycle that you see.
Right.
And talk about your desire to change it. Let the other person know, I don't like this either.
Right.
And I want to change it, and without blaming. Just being like, this is what I notice is happening. And then when you are discussing it, pay attention to your tone of voice. Like when you're discussing this topic, or if you're coming up with like an issue in the relationship, pay attention to how you're saying it.
Sure.
Are you yelling? Are you saying it in a stern voice? Try to make requests versus demands.
Yeah, the request thing's big, right?
Yeah. Don't tell them this is what you need to do. Express it maybe from more of a feelings perspective of like, I feel frustrated, I feel alone, and explain why something's important.
Right.
And avoid saying you. That's a pretty common one, but if you could avoid saying you do this, you do that, it really puts people on the defense.
Particularly you always, never add the always, right?
Always, yes. The always, never.
Right, never, always.
Those are no-goes. So always try coming from a feelings perspective. Try to go a little bit deeper. And these are things that a therapist can help you with. So if you really notice this has been a problem in your relationship for a while, you may need outside help to kind of help restructure the communication.
Well, I mean, especially in today's COVID world, right? I mean, relationships are probably one of the biggest things we're seeing here at Harper Therapy that's constantly being under attack, right? COVID has not been kind to relationships, and that's a theme we've used a lot around here lately. And it hasn't, so rather than doing things like avoiding these conflicts and building these walls all around ourselves, get some help.
Yes.
Reach out and get some help. And we can definitely help with that. Our number is 813-434-3639. Thanks so much.
Bye.